and Billy Tattoo. Okay, so we're just walking through.
Sometimes you need to feel the pain and sting of defeat to activate the real passion and purpose. Graduating class, hear me well on this day. When you have reached the hilltop and you are deciding on next jobs, next steps, careers, further education, you would rather find purpose than a job or a career. Purpose crosses disciplines. Purpose is an essential element of you. It is the reason you are on the planet at this particular time in history. Your very existence is wrapped up in the things you are here to fulfill. Whatever you choose for a career path, remember the struggles along the way are only meant to shape you for your purpose.
Hotep to the servant leader scholars of Sankofa Freedom Academy Charter School. Shem Hotep, Dr. Mayat. And now it's time for the magic question. Sankofa, higher, higher, higher. Sankofa, higher, feeling fantastic, terrific, great, all day long. Boom, boom, boom. Whoa. And now it is time for the morning libations. We ask that you please stand strong, please stand firm in the firm Angalea. We first ask for permission from an elder to begin. Permission has been granted in advance, and now we will begin the morning libations. Ashe. We would first like to pour libations to the gift of life, love, and learning, and we say Ashe. We pour libations to our ancestors who migrated out of Africa and gave to the world the gift of humanity, and we say Ashe. We pour libations to the mighty nations of Africa, and we say Ashe. Cultural nations, the political nations, we pour libations to the ancient civilizations, and we say Ashe. 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 We pour libations to the mighty nations of Africa. We pour libations to Kemet, to Nubia, to Kush, Carthage. We pour libations to Ghana, Mali, and Songhai. We pour libations to the Yoruba, the Igbo, the Hausa, the Twa. We pour libations to the Akan. We pour libations to the Zulu, to Namibia, to Chad. We pour libations to those nations named and unnamed. We pour libations to those nations known and unknown. Ashe. Let us give libations to the founding of dynastic Kemet. Let us give libations to the first pharaoh, the first king, Ahamina, also known as Narmer. And let us give libations to the first queen mother, the first queen of dynastic Kemet, Neith Hotep. To Narmer and Neith Hotep we give libations and we say Ashe. Most known through the Narmer palette, it depicts the pharaoh Narmer founding the first dynasty in 3200 BCE, that is approximately 5,200 years ago. Narmer is depicted defeating his enemies, uniting the two lands with his sandal bearer behind him, Heru before him as he defeats thousands of enemies, and with the queen mother before him, the flag bearer. We give libations to Narmer and to Queen Neith Hotep, who founded all of dynastic Kemet, and we say Ashe. Two of our historians who are ancestors to John G. Jackson and J.C. DeGraff Johnson, who taught us the historiography of Africa and the onslaught against African civilizations in their works, African Glory by J.C. DeGraff Johnson and Introduction to African Civilizations by John G. Jackson. We pour libations to their memory and the memory that they taught us through history. Ashe, Ashe. We pour libations to our African ancestors who fought in insurrections on slave ships. We pour libations to those who survived, those who sacrificed and died, to those who rerouted ships, burned ships, sank ships. We pour libations to those ancestors and we say, Ashe. We pour libations to the three rebel queens who in 1878 led an island-wide rebellion against post-slavery working conditions. To the three rebel queens, to Queen Mary, Queen Agnes, and Queen Matilda, who led the 1878 fire burn in St. Croix. We pour libations and we say, Ashe. We pour libations to Maria Firmina dos Reis, the Black Brazilian author from the 1800s. She is the author of The Slave Woman, A Escrava, from 1887. She is also the author of the anti-slavery novel Ursula from 1859. As well, she is the author of Songs by the Seaside, a collection of poetry from 1871. Abolitionist author of Brazil, who also gave voice to women. To Maria Firmina dos Reis, we give libations and we say Ashe. To Juan Gualberto Gomez, we pour libations and we say Ashe. To the Cuban nationalist who rose to the rank of general in the Cuban War for Independence, born of enslaved parents in 1854, he founded the newspaper La Fraternidad, which was dedicated to the uplift of people of African descent in Cuba. While in Spain, he wrote the newspaper The Abolitionist, and he was also the secretary of the Abolitionist Society of Madrid. Juan Gualberto Gomez, he dedicated his life to the freedom of Cuba and to the independence and freedom of people of African descent in Cuba. To Juan Gualberto Gomez, we pour libations and we say Ashe. To Lucy Stanton, we give libations and we say Ashe. She was an educator and abolitionist. Her father was an active member in the Underground Railroad, using their home to support blacks escaping slavery. He organized a school in Cleveland, Ohio, as well for blacks. This left an impression on young Lucy Stanton. She became a principal, and she was also an educator. She taught fugitive slaves in Canada. She wrote an anti-slavery fictional story in 1854. She remained active in the abolitionist movement and supported the Freedmen's Association after the Civil War. To Lucy Stanton, we give libations and we say Ashe.
In the late 1800s and early 1900s, many African Americans moved to Oklahoma to get away from the racism and prejudice of the southern United States. By 1921, Greenwood had become a successful district for African Americans. No whites lived there or did business in the area. Around 10,000 blacks had homes in Greenwood. The businesses owned and ran by African Americans were very successful. Wealthy African American businessmen, doctors, lawyers, realtors, and other professionals called the Greenwood District home. Banks, churches, stores, newspaper publishers, hotels, theaters, a post office, libraries, schools, and airports thrived in the area. In the month of May 1921, an African American by the name of Dick Rowland was accused of attacking a white female elevator operator. He was later cleared of the crime, but not before the newspaper, the Tulsa Tribune, published a story about the accused attack. On May 31st, an angry mob of white men armed with guns decided to kill Dick Rowland when he was released from jail. This started a violent riot. Whites flooded into Greenwood with the intent of destroying it and killing African American men, women, and children. On June 1st, military troops were brought to Greenwood to stop the violence, but by then, 1,000 African American businesses and homes were wiped out. The American Red Cross estimated that over 300 people were killed and 35 city blocks were destroyed by fire. The Tulsa Race Riot was the worst riot over the issue of blacks and whites in the history of the United States. After the riot, Greenwood was rebuilt 5 years later and became a famous place for jazz and blues music in the late 1920s. For many years, the details of the Tulsa Race Riot were kept out of the history books, but in the early 2000s, a study revealed the facts. In honor of those affected by the violence, scholarships have been given to the descendants of the African Americans who survived the riot, and memorials have been built to honor those who were killed.
To our ancestors of the 1921 race riot of Black Wall Street, we pour libations and we say, Ashe. And let us remember the names of the ancestors in our personal families. I call the names of Mama Nettie Mae Williams and Papa Frank Washington. Ashe, I ask that you call the names of the ancestors in your personal families. Ashe, let us remember them. Let us keep their deeds and virtues alive that they have taught us. Ashe. And to the leadership of Sankofa Freedom Academy Charter School, let us give affirmation to our upper school coordinator, Sister Tamika Bowman. Ashe. To our COO and co-founder, Brother Issa Clark. Ashe. And to our CEO and founder, Dr. Mama Aisha Imani, our leader, we give affirmation and we say Ashe. We ask that this libation is accepted with all good intention. We ask that it is understood as a form of cultural and educational practice of Africans in the schools, that it is understood as a time-tested and time-practiced cultural tradition of African people. Go forth with purpose, walk in the footsteps of your mighty ancestors, so that one day the unborn will walk in your footsteps. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. It is now time for announcements and recognitions. The principle of the month is Heshima, and Heshima means respect. The Ma'at virtue of the month is order. Make sure you follow expectations of cyber classes, use full name, participate in class, sit and dress properly in uniform. Cameras remain on unless otherwise instructed. Thank you.
We are the servant leaders and intellectual warriors
of Sankofa Freedom Academy Charter School.
We shall always remember the sacrifices of our ancestors.
Those who were taken from their land and those whose land was taken from them.
Because we stand on the shoulders of the mighty people,
we shall build mighty shoulders for others to stand.
We pledge to develop good habits of the mind, body, and spirit.
We pledge to continue the legacy of the freedom fighters before us.
We understand that we exist because others have made it possible for us.
Because others have made it possible for us, we will make it possible for others.
every day and every way.
We shall learn so that we can teach, and we shall teach so that we can change the world.
We are
Sankofa Freedom Academy Charter School,
working to restore excellence in scholarship,
culture, and community.
One heart,
One love,
one earth,
one people,
Harambe.
it's time for the moment of silence. The moment of silence is used to reflect on the day. The moment of silence begins now. Ashe. Go forward with purpose. Walk in faith and achieve greatness.